Welcome to the 9 Elements Podcast, brought to you by Restore Hyper Wellness. I'm your host, Eric Hinman. Each week, I sit down with trailblazers in the fitness, nutrition, and wellness communities, exploring how they optimize their daily lives for ultimate performance to do more of what they love. I'm a 5-time Ironman athlete, brand builder, and someone who is obsessed with health and wellness, structuring much of my day around fitness and recovery protocols. On today's episode, I chat with my good friend, Greg Scheinman. Greg is proof positive that age is just a number. Through conversations in his career, he realized that there was no instruction book for men as they aged out of their 30s into middle age. So he started a podcast, which turned into a weekly newsletter, which eventually turned into the Midlife Male movement. He now helps people optimize their lives at middle age, switching the script from midlife crisis to aspirational aging. So cool. I love your mindset. Have you always had the mindset of what I call better than yesterday? You know, just always pushing the ball forward a little bit, always, just kind of like seeing what you're capable of. Has that always been a mindset that you've had?
No, and I appreciate you asking. Look, my mindset has really shifted over time. I spent a lot of years, I think, in entitlement and in denial, in expecting, things to come easily in success, and didn't really have an open growth kind of better than yesterday, or even let's get better for tomorrow, 1% better, the next day type of mindset. I think I'm a slow learner, man, and a late bloomer. I've said that a number of times, and I believe that. Over time, I've kind of adopted this mindset that, look, I had it backwards, before. Being 1% better every day, trying to be better than yesterday, working hard for things, not focusing or fixating on results or what was coming easily to me, but rather challenging myself to do different things and embrace curiosity personally and professionally. This is really like a second phase of my life type mindset. And it's been really eye-opening. I think it's been great for me personally and professionally. I think it's been wonderful with my family. I wish I'd gotten here sooner, but hey, like whenever you get there, right? Gotcha.
So for those of you that don't know Greg looks like a Roman warrior. He literally has a turtle shell for a body. You are in incredible shape. And he just wrote this book that is coming out in a couple months called The Midlife Male. Walk us through kind of your progression in career and lifestyle, because I know you were involved in entertainment. You had mentioned that, at one point you were a producer for people such as Jesse Itzler when he was starting his rap career. Then you were in insurance, and, now you have this coaching business and this book, The Midlife Male, and a podcast called The Midlife Male. So yeah, walk us through your journey, and also from the standpoint of, I feel like we both, for a certain time period, were very much like work on the weekdays, play on the weekends. Health and wellness took a back seat to career. And I think now for both of us, our careers are very much aligned with our health and wellness lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing, the only claim to fame I have with Jesse, other than being a huge fan, is that I was fortunate enough to book him to rap at a college fraternity party. This goes back like 30 years ago.
So
other than
cool.
That's the only thing. Other than that, and being a huge fan of everything that Jesse does, I got no responsibility whatsoever for anything that he's done. As far as entertainment goes, I started my career at Miramax Films right out of college. I landed as the executive assistant to Harvey Weinstein. So I have the glorious distinction of having told Harvey to go fuck himself 20 years before the Me Too era. Mm-hmm. And it just never occurred to me that would be damaging to wanting to have a film career, that I couldn't go on and still have a film career. It just didn't occur to me. Maybe I was just blissfully ignorant at that point, but I just didn't care, And I went on to produce a couple of pretty successful independent films in my 20s. That led me to founding a company called Team Baby Entertainment, which is a children's sports video company. When we had our first son, we became the baby Einstein of the sports world. Ultimately, I had sold that company to Michael Eisner, who was the former chairman of Disney. And at that point, it kind of started, it was kind of the tipping point of, what do I do now? How do I live my life? At that point, I was a father of 2 boys, young boys. I had sold this business. I needed to keep working and do other things. My identity had been tied up into Team Baby and working with Michael for those years. We were now living in Houston, Texas, not exactly the hotbed of the entertainment industry, either, down there. And what's interesting, and like a parallel, even with you, is, you started in insurance, and risk, and kind of transformed into this incredible health and wellness individual and this lifestyle you have. I kind of went the other way. I went from this risk-taking, kind of hedonistic, narcissistic, unhealthy lifestyle into risk management later in life. And everyone thought I was crazy when I joined our firm and invested in my firm. And it just checked a lot of boxes for me at the time. That the shift from risk taker to kind of risk management, the notion of being in business and of something I'd never done anything that anybody really needed before either, So when you think about being a parent and being responsible and actually having a career and residual income, and I also thought of it as this unique way for me to live vicariously through all these other businesses and brands that I was a fan of. So even like you, I specialized in, what do I love? Eating and drinking and working out and supplements and equipment and hospitality. And I went after all of those types of businesses. So even a lot of the brands that you and I work with today and that we love, those are the types of businesses and brands and entrepreneurs that I was supporting on the risk management side and helping them grow their business and mitigate their risk. And it was super cool. It lasted 14 years of my life there until our firm was acquired August of 2020.
And also along the way, when did you start the podcast, the Midlife Male podcast, and when did you start building the brand for Midlife Male? And talk about, what your definition of Midlife Male is and how you're trying to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Another great question. Along the way, I started to correlate what I was doing in risk and in business with how I should be operating personally, taking a similar approach. And I was becoming disenchanted kind of with corporate, not particularly what I was doing or even my firm or anything, but just this notion that, are we defined by kind of our job? Are we defined by salary and title? And is there a more holistic way to look at it? And I started having these conversations with friends and clients that initially, the podcast really started as a TV show on PBS in Houston, where I was interviewing entrepreneurs and risk takers. Then it evolved into a podcast because people were listening to podcasts more than they were watching PBS television. And then those conversations started to become deeply personal, not really about business. We started to transcend business and really get into personal. And at that point, I rebranded under the Midlife Male kind of moniker, which somebody started calling me that one day. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I guess I am, at this stage of my life, a midlife male. And I really started going, instead of kind of shallow and wide with the content on the podcast, really started going narrow and deep and having men on the podcast that were maximizing middle age. And those are the conversations I wanted to have. Those are the guys I wanted to learn from. That's where I was headed. Instead of salary and title and fixating on those things, I had kind of evolved into what I call the 6 F's of family and fitness and finance and food and fashion and fun and all the shit that I was into as a way of living. And that's what the podcast became about. Bringing in experts and thought leaders and interesting men in all of those areas, talking about how they were living their lives. And the podcast evolved into a newsletter. The newsletter and the podcast became the book. Along the way, I transitioned out of the firm once we sold and have been doing this full time. It became a coaching program, so I work with men one-on-one all over the country, right now. And I'm having this amazing opportunity to speak on bigger stages and get the message out there that midlife is not a crisis. It's the beginning of the next and best phase of our lives. And there is a way to operate that will help you transcend or transform from kind of living in this position of mediocrity and conformity and complacency to you can maximize this next phase. And that's what I'm doing.
So awesome. So I think, the differentiation is being mindful of, am I just going through the motions or am I really living? I like to call it perfect days. Am I replicating perfect days? And obviously in this world, we need to figure out how to monetize a portion of our day or build some kind of asset or some kind of residual income. But yeah, the goal is living perfect days and being able to monetize that. And everyone's perfect day is obviously different. Like ours are very much based around health and wellness, because for us, that brings us that mental clarity, that emotional well-being, that unlimited energy. For someone else, it may be being the best dad in the world, being the best business owner in the world, building something. But yeah, I think it's like taking a step back, looking at your life and just making a list of like, I am in flow state when I'm around these people, when I'm doing these things, when I'm in this environment. And I'm not present when I'm in this board meeting. I'm not present when I'm doodling. I'm thinking about something else I wish I was doing in that moment. And I think that's when you're just going through the motions. You're not really living. And I love that you do a great job of educating people to be mindful of like, hey, am I in the moment? Am I loving what I'm doing?
I think it's both, Eric, also. I think that there's this relatable yet aspirational aspect to it. And again, really where I spend my time and what I consider my lane, and even the men that I'm working with, look, a lot of what we hear now, follow your passion and quit your job and go out and do this. So they look around at other people's lifestyles and they don't seem attainable, or they're not maybe relatable. They're certainly aspirational in a lot of ways. But remember, look, I'm married for 20 plus years. We have two teenage boys. I have worked as an entrepreneur. I have worked in corporate America, private companies, public companies, and everybody's situation is different. I'm not saying you should quit your job and go follow your passion. Most of us don't even know what our passion is. What I am advocating for is living your life by design, what you said, and saying, hey, how do we reverse engineer back to what does a maximized life look like for you? What is not only possible, but what is probable and realistic based upon where you are? And then also where you may want to go a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, so that we do things and operate responsibly. Because look, I may not love my job or my career, but by the way, I would say this for a couple of years, I got paid a lot of money to host a podcast and write a newsletter for several years. Why? Because I also worked for 14 years to build a book of business that threw off X amount of income that allowed me to do that without quitting my job overall. And I think, really in working with a lot of men, and this applies to women or anybody, let's take a look at the big picture here. At what age and what stage and what time maybe do you move on? Where do you move these pieces and bring these things in? But you can control what you can't control. You can prioritize your health and wellness, no matter what your job is or career is. You should be maxing out your vacation days, your 401ks. You should be taking everything you possibly can from your company and your job too, and giving them what they need, but you get what you need. I just think all of these things play together, and I do want to kind of dispel, some of the, hey, I can't do that, or I can't have that also, or I can't live the way that guy is living, or I can't. You know what? Maybe not exactly, but one of the principles that I coach to is aggregate and curate and eliminate. You can aggregate all the best stuff out there. And I follow you and I look to you for so much of this stuff. If I can do a fraction of what you do, based on what kind of lifestyle I have, aggregate it in, curate it down to the best stuff, and then eliminate the shit that doesn't work or doesn't fit based on where we are. Doesn't mean it's not going to fit forever. Just means maybe right now. So I just think that stuff's really, really important, and it plays well even into what we're talking about with hyper wellness, here. How do you prioritize hyper wellness and recovery and those things. Not everybody can have a sauna, or an ice barrel or a cold plunge. But what do? You can go to a place again like Restore. Like there's always a solution. There's always a solution to whatever challenges you're facing. You've just got to be open and creative and realistic. And I think strategic and tactical about how you want to solve that challenge, how you want to get past that obstacle.
Yep. Yeah, I think for a lot of people that are not, athletes, that don't have a background in the health and wellness industry, a lot of people see the aesthetic and think that the exercise, the nutrition, the recovery, it's all for an aesthetic. And, I know both of us know, and a lot of our inner circle know that, we're doing it to fuel mental clarity. We're doing it to fuel emotional well-being. We're doing it to be the best father, the best husband, the best business owner, the best coach. And I mean, that's why my life is so designed around those things, is because they give me all of that. They make me be the best version of myself. That's why my morning exercise is prioritized. It's the first thing I do. That's why my recovery routine is non-negotiable. And, I'm also able to combine things with that. Obviously brand deals. I get to hang out with my friends while I'm doing these workouts. I get to invite new people over to do recovery sessions in a sauna, or to go to a place like Restore and let's do a recovery session together, have a great conversation while our serotonin levels are high. So these things fuel a lot other than just a physical aesthetic, Tell me about your routine. We were talking about this earlier, where through COVID, you kind of designed your own environment at your house, which I have done as well, to have it here, but also to be able to bring people here to experience this stuff, not just for me to use solo.
Totally. I think you nailed it, first of all, that aesthetics are a bonus and a benefit of the lifestyle that you lead. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also, I just thought that was really important in the way that you pointed that out. It's like, we train for how we feel, for how we feel and how we perform in all areas of life. The benefit of consistent training is, you're going to have some aesthetic benefits and bonuses that naturally come along with that. But it's really much more about how you feel than anything, which leads to your question. Ideally, I never had any workout equipment at my house for the vast majority of my life, even up until COVID. I always thought that those things were separate in a way. I would go out to work out, whether it was at a CrossFit box or whether it was in another gym or whatever my training kind of modalities were. I always went out for that and thought that that's the way I wanted to do it. And when I came home, my house was kind of my sanctuary. I didn't want that kind of pressure or to work out and to do all that. Plus, there's the people factor. I didn't really want to work out alone, so I never invested in that. Well, COVID threw obviously everything for a loop, and while I would not wish a global pandemic on anybody, it certainly opened my eyes to a new way of doing things, because when you strip everything away, we get this amazing choice and opportunity of what it is we want to bring back into our lives. And you mentioned the term non-negotiables. Well, look, health, wellness, fitness, exercising, recovery, those are non-negotiables for me at this point. Mentally, more than anything, that is paramount. Like, even Kate was joking with me this morning. She's like, do yourself a favor on this Utah thing and everything else. Just do not get hurt, because we don't want to live with you if you can't train and exercise and do everything. That's kind of the way it is. She wasn't really kidding, when she said that. So we gutted our garage, moved the cars out, took everything out, gutted the garage, rubberized the floors. I started ordering equipment in order of importance, and you're like that, I think, too. It's like, okay, what are your essentials? What are your non-negotiables? What do you really need to kind of train the way we want to train? And I had a great time with it, but we put everything, big table in the backyard, because we were going to be eating at home, more. I like to use certain apps like Ladder when I work out. So I put an Apple TV in there so I could put the workouts up on the board, up on the screen. Brought in equipment that was there that I loved. And then also added, again, sauna, cold plunge, everything that I needed for recovery, and built this sanctuary in a way from scratch. And then it led to, well, how do I fill this also? Not just for me. My kids were using it. and their friends were able to come over, and my training partner Lionel was able to come over, and our boxing coach Will was able to come over, and for a while, our personal trainer Taj from Congo was able to come over, and his brother, and it started to become this what we tried to make this safe haven throughout COVID, where we could train and we could recover, and really kind of double down on health and wellness. And now I do 90% of my training at home. Probably like a 50-50 split of alone versus people that come over and join me. And on those days when I want that intensity, or I want that environment and that extra camaraderie, I'll still go out to the gym. I'll still go to Congo, once or twice a week, and see my buddies and see my friends and do that. And I've gotten really big into swimming and those XPT style workouts as well. So
low impact.
So it's a good combination. Anything again that's low impact also right now has become a big thing for me.
Yep. What are your essentials? What training tools do you have? And then walk us through the recovery tools that you have at your house, and what is your structure with them? Do you work out in the mornings? Do you do recovery in the mornings? When do you do everything?
Yeah, great. So I'll start on the routine. So I wake up at about 6 o'clock every morning without an alarm clock. I never set an alarm clock. I'm really fortunate right now. But I wake up at about 6. That's before anybody else in my house. Hydrate, caffeinate, urinate. Not necessarily in that order overall, but it's 20 ounces of water. It's athletic greens. It's 5 grams of creatine, and then I'm brewing coffee. In there. I let the dogs out, and I like to just stand outside in the mornings. I just want to get outside in nature, get on my feet as quickly as I possibly can. And those hours from 6 to 8 are really almost my time. Depending upon whether the kids are in school, or not. And I use that time to write. I know a lot of people say don't check your phone and don't do anything. I do. The first thing I look at is my calendar as soon as I wake up, which is weird because it's the last thing I look at before I go to bed, and I don't know why I think it's going to change and something's going to surprise me. But I always like to look at my calendar and understand. And understand what's on my plate for that day. And then I try to get mentally and physically prepared for that. So I will send emails or read notes, or I'll do a little writing, or whatever is based on the calendar. I kind of gear myself up for that. I typically train around 9 o'clock in the morning. I can't train hard and heavy first thing in the morning. At this point, it just takes me a while to get moving. I start with an inversion table. I'm on my inversion table for a few rounds of a couple of minutes each. I like to do upside down, and then I like to do dead hangs. I got to get my body stretched out. I got to get long. Now, tightness is my big thing. And then I never really pre-plan my workouts. I go on feel. Again, Fridays are boxing days. Thursdays are typically pool days. Everything else around it, I just really go on feel. I'll pull up a workout that I think is interesting or that feels good. Or if I'm feeling strong and feeling like we'll get the sleds out and we'll go harder and we'll go heavy. But again, at this point, I really go on feel more than anything. And then as far as recovery goes, it's 4 or 5 days a week. I'm in the infrared sauna. I typically do it at night. I really have found that I sleep much better when I sauna at night for 30 minutes, and then I hit the cold plunge before I go to bed for typically, maybe 2 to 3 rounds of about 3 minutes each, in the cold plunge. And now my son has been joining me in the cold plunge. Like, he's really into it too. So we'll alternate a little bit, and then we'll eat dinner and sleep like a baby. Try to be in bed by around 9:30 and lights out typically by about 10:30.
I love it. Your routine's really similar to mine. I'm the same in the morning. I like my day starts slow. It's the only part of my day that's slow. Similar to you, I'm up, water. I do athletic greens, creatine. I also do colostrum, collagen protein, and live human beet powder. And then NMN under my tongue, which is the precursor to NAD. And yeah, the first hour and a half for me is, answering messages that I didn't get to the day before, definitely looking at my calendar. I do structure my workouts. I loosely follow Matt Fraser's HWPO program. So, I'll look at what the programming is for that day and kind of wrap my mind around what I'll be doing. I'll message any of my friends that I'm training with what the workout is. And then I'm off to the gym, or I'm training here at the house with people in the morning. And right around the same time as you, 9 a.m., that's where I feel like I've gotten that about 2.5 hours to like move around a bit. My body's feeling mobile. My energy levels are high from having some caffeine. And I go back and forth with workouts now. I'm 42, so, like you, like I'm starting to think about, some longevity and I want to do this for a long time. So I don't want to pound myself into the ground day in and day out like I used to with the Ironman training. So I go back and forth on training days. One day is typically a big gym day for me. So strength training, anaerobic conditioning, Olympic lifting, gymnastics. And then the next day is lower impact stuff like mountain biking, trail running, hiking, and it keeps the stoke high for both, I'm excited to go to the gym having one day off, and I'm excited to mountain bike or trail run with one day off of that. And I think keeping the stoke high is super important. Like you have your swim routine once a week, and the kid, you probably really look forward to that. And I think that's a valuable lesson for people, is that exercise is not a checklist item. It's something I enjoy doing every single day. It's difficult. Don't get me wrong. I'm pushing myself, and it can sometimes hurt in the moment, but I look forward to it every day. And I call it type 2 fun. Like afterwards, the high that you get from that is tremendous. And I like to build important things around those workouts. So for example, we trained this morning together at the house, we jumped in the ice barrel, and now we're doing this podcast, and I feel like my mental clarity is so much higher immediately after a workout than prior to a workout. So I like planning, podcasts, important conversations, creativity sessions immediately following workouts or immediately following recovery sessions. And then lunch for me, and then in the afternoon. Yeah, afternoon, I usually go outside. I get 90 minutes of sunlight, either biking, trail running, hiking. And then my recovery routine is either doing it here at the house, doing 2 to 3 rounds of a hot sauna directly into cold exposure, or I'm going to a place like Restore, where I consider that multitasking without multitasking. A place like Restore, not only are you getting such things as the infrared sauna, cryotherapy, they have drips there, they have the Normatec boots and hyper ice, but you're also like interacting with like-minded people. So I've met some of my closest friends, in recovery places, in saunas, doing cold exposure. So I like to think of that as like going out, meeting new people, having really engaging conversations, and, creating opportunities for myself and for others. A lot of times I'm able to like link someone I meet at that place with someone else. You are a master connector. I know you do this all the time. You're constantly connecting people. So, I consider going out to do a lot of these things, opportunistic and building opportunities for myself and others. And then dinner is where I have my biggest meal at night. I kind of build my calories throughout the day. I think you may do the same. I know it's the opposite of the way a lot of people preach, but I feel like I operate best physically and mentally on less food and less calories. And then at the end of the day, when I've kind of drained my battery, that's when I refuel it. And then, you have sleep that completely refuels it. And like you, I do not use an alarm clock. I go to bed around the exact same time every night. I wake up around the same time each morning. I don't schedule anything before 9 a.m. so that I can sleep in if my body requires it. Sleep is so important.
It's huge. And I love the way you break it all down there. And I think, some of the things that you mentioned that I think are important to really key on is, we used to say also, even at the, like, you don't meet anybody at your desk. So it's always great to be able to go out and surround yourself with like-minded people and put yourself in places that, again, make you better, make you healthier, inspire you, put you around the kind of people that you want to be around and that make you feel good, and that also open up opportunities, authentic opportunities that organically and naturally develop just from the environments that you put yourself, in. I found that to be true over a large period of time. The other thing is, on the multitasking aspect of things, you can actually get a lot of work done doing a lot of these things. Maybe not during or the middle of your workout, but I get a lot of work done in my sauna. I can get a lot of work done even at Restore, getting an IV and everything else. You can multitask in that way and say, look, I can be getting this treatment done. I also can be responding to emails. I also can be having conversations. And by the way, the other people that see me doing this, they understand my lifestyle. It's not uncommon for me to have the vast majority of my calls, my meetings, all of these things, I get right after my workouts. I think, like you, I always schedule the most difficult, most challenging thing or highest value, highest rate of return activities. I schedule that always after my workouts, because my thing is that's when I feel my strongest. That's when I feel my best. You're going to have a hard time beating me, like after that. That's when I'm at my peak, and I'm also at my most confident when I have broken that sweat. I've gone at it, okay? I'm still in my gym clothes, I'm rehydrating out there. So I want my highest rate of return activities to follow, okay, my workouts. And then again, I work from, and I get this too, like I work from basically, call it, 10 to 4. Now that may seem like a shorter day, to most. But again, if you really know where all of your time is going and you're efficient and you're effective with your time and you're not wasting it, 10 to 4, you can get a lot done. So I'm able to maximize my mornings and again, prioritize my non-negotiables and the things that are super important to me personally and with my family, crank out my workday, which I know exactly what it consists of now. And it's different from when I had to go to an office and with a firm. It's different. But again, we're aiming for similar to better results. I'm just doing a different thing full time now. And then second half of the day from 4 and beyond, whether or not I was coaching a team, I used to coach all my kids' teams. Now they're a little old for that. Now we're actually going and attending games. I'm catching back up with Kate. I'm taking the dogs for a walk. I might still be checking messages. Maybe I'm taking notes for what I want to write about this weekend. I'm digesting. And then my biggest meal is typically dinner also, because the days move fast. When you block it out, just talking about what we've just talked about, it's exhausting. It really is. And you have to allow for the recovery and to recharge your battery for that if you want to go at that pace day in and day out.
Yep, can't agree more. Physically, mentally, emotionally, all of it. The cold exposure for me, the sauna sessions for me are, in the moment, sure, I get that serotonin hit immediately afterwards. I feel great, but, having infrared saunas for me date back 12 years when I was using them to prepare for racing in Kona for heat acclimation. And, really the last 5 or 6 years is when I started doing the contrast therapy, going directly from the heat into the cold. And, over time, I've noticed these incredible benefits like stress resilience. Like it takes something monumental now to stress me out. I'm just so even keeled compared to how I used to be. And I completely associate that to doing, the sauna and the cold. It's just building grit. It's building stress resilience. So someone cuts me off on the road, it doesn't ruin my day. I'm like, oh, that stinks, but that it doesn't raise my blood pressure. It doesn't jolt my nervous system at all. And then not getting sick. I knock on this wood box jump that everything's set up on. I do not get sick anymore. And that's from building my immune system through these healthy practices of cold, heat, red light therapy. I know you get drips, eating healthy, all of these things. Again, just like make you the best version of yourself, so much more than just the physicality portion of it.
I was going to say, you just nailed it there also about, running your own race, and figuring out what your cadence is. I used to live in a state of like perpetual stress and anxiety. And there was also a time when I was compounding that stress and anxiety with the physical. The workouts were too intense. Too much of a good thing is not, I was very much in that over-indexing trap of work and career, and then everything was high intensity. And you can break down from that quickly and even over time. What I have learned and evolved into, again, more sustainable, more longevity based, is that now the ratios have flipped. My emphasis is on recovery. Really, my time, my energy, and my money, actually, more of it goes towards sustainability and longevity and recovery. And then I back into the kinds of workouts I'm doing that make me feel good. Whereas I used to end up on the floor, and I crushed that workout, but I would pay for it for the next 23 hours, big. Yeah. Now, like, I can even come and hang with you, and you are an elite level athlete, and I'm just a dude, like, who's athletic, in a lot of ways. And we can throw a workout up there, and again, understanding kind of how to modify that, how to pace that, how to run your own race and feel good about it. There's a lot of white space between, I think, elite level athletes and going hard, and what it genuinely and generally means to be just healthy, and living a healthy, sustainable, longevity-based lifestyle. And I think they're all okay. Just for me, it's just taken a while to figure out what that balance and what that rhythm and cadence really looks like. And I think it's going to continue to change each and every year. 50, 51, 55. Okay, we're going to pivot. We're going to make some changes. Some things are going to move in different directions. And again, I think it's all okay. Just listen to your body and listen to your mind and make sure you're able to perform. Like if I work out so hard that I can't work, I'm doing a disservice to myself, my family, and my clients.
Yep. This 9 Elements episode is brought to you by Restore Hyper Wellness. Did you know that regular exposure to saunas can help increase your lifespan? Saunas also lower your risk of cardiovascular disease, and exposure to controlled heat stress can reduce oxidative stress. It's the reason most homes in Finland have a sauna. Heat also helps reduce pain and swelling, improve skin health and clarity, and optimize mood and energy. That's why I put Greg in my personal infrared sauna for this episode. So sweat it out, unburden your body from stress, sore muscles, and free radicals with an ancient practice designed for the modern age with Restore's state-of-the-art infrared saunas. Lay back, relax, and unwind as your body burns calories and finds relief from inflammation, release minor pain, accelerate athletic recovery, and boost circulation and cardiovascular health, all in 40 minutes or less. Put Restore's infrared saunas to work. 9 Elements listeners can receive 20% off your first Restore service using the code ELEMENTS20 when making your first appointment. That code again is ELEMENTS20 to save 20% when booking your first service with Restore. Yeah, so I think it can often be, you can get addicted to that high from exercise, and you can get trapped in this perpetual cycle of wanting more. And I was in this in my Ironman years. So from 2011 until 2015, I was definitely trapped in that cycle of I needed more to get, that high. And, I did not have a good recovery routine back then. And it was just like pounding myself into the ground to chase that high day in and day out. And it wasn't healthy. But it was also important to live that chapter of my life, to know what my limit was with that, and also to build, that mental resilience. Like I do think, the David Goggins of the world, that savage mentality, I like that for short periods of time, for short chapters of life, but I wouldn't build a lifestyle around it because I just think that's a recipe for disaster down the road. You're going to run yourself into the ground. You're going to do yourself a major disservice if you keep that savage mentality for too long. But short windows of it, or, I like to think of it as obstacles now. Like, you're putting this obstacle in your life of doing the 29-29 event. I typically do Leadville mountain bike race each year, which is an obstacle for me. Like I have to train for it. It's going to be a very hard day, but in the Ironman years, I was doing, 5 half Ironmans in 1 year, 2 full Ironmans in 1 year, training 20 to 25 hours a week in a very small, in one narrow window of training, swimming, biking, and running. Not a ton of strength training, not a ton of anaerobic conditioning, definitely no mobility work, no gymnastics work. And it was too one-dimensional. And again, I got addicted to just doing those things. I didn't have a window into other things I could do to get that high. And, again, going back to the switching back and forth now, and for you, like having a varied routine, that keeps the stoke high and it keeps my body fresh, but also knowing that you can resort to, your recovery routine, either doing it at your house or doing it at a place like Restore to, get that same high that you get from exercise, but setting you up for success the next day, not pounding yourself into the ground. So the next day you have to go even further with the exercise to get that same boost of serotonin.
Again, it's what is your metric of success? What does success look like for you? What do you need? I do need to challenge myself. I like to push myself. So I will schedule something, typically one thing per quarter, now is what I like to do. I like to put something on the calendar that I look forward to. out there. In this instance, the next one up is 2929. A couple of months back, it was high performance lifestyle training in New York. Now, I am not a Navy SEAL, nor can I possibly ever be a Navy SEAL, but I can train with them for a morning or two and really enjoy that. And then it sends me back on my way to my normal life, okay, doing what I need to do. So some of the challenges are physical and hard. Others, again, now I'm finding are more restorative. I went out to Modern Elder Academy in Baja Sur, California, and that was very emotional, and that was very transformative, and it was an interesting experience. And there's some other great restorative retreats and experiences and things that are out there too. So they don't always have to be physical challenges directly. I think it's this combination, again, of physical, emotional, spiritual, wherever you are in your personal journey and whatever your needs are, you can find it. For me, I like to schedule that stuff out in advance. I geek out on kind of, again, finding the best and coolest things out there that fill my tank and get me excited. Then I typically share them with Kate and the boys and tell them what we're going to do or what I'm going to do, and then they get to do their stuff. And we get excited over this, and then it enables you to work backwards again into what your goals are. What are our goals as a family? What are my goals financially? Because I got to pay for this now, in order to go. So I got to devote time to it. I got to devote money to it. I got to devote energy to it. How does it all fit in what success looks like for us, as a family? For me personally, but also inclusive of my family, so that I'm not only hopefully leading and living by example and by design, but I'm not also shirking or ignoring any of my responsibilities at home. And something's got to give in some places. Yeah. And it gets back to starting with what's realistic, what's achievable, what's aspirational, a little bit out there. And how are we talking about this stuff? It doesn't just happen by default or by accident. Like, it happens by design. The way you live is by design. The way that I've had 200 guys that have come on even my podcast and talk is by design. Doesn't matter what they do for a living or what exactly their situation is. But the consistent thing is they have a plan. They have a plan. And they work their plan, whatever it is. And their plan might not be the best way for me or anything else, but you can learn from every one of these guys that are out there. You can always learn something, but then figure out a way to apply it to the life that you want to live.
Yeah, having a plan, having structure, they're so important. I've always said that freedom comes from structure. I like doing pretty much the same things at the same times each day. There's variety within that. I'm mountain biking in different places. I'm trail running and hiking in different places. I'm working out with different people. I'm working out, at different friends' houses. I'm doing my recovery routine here. I'm going to Restore. I'm going to friends' houses. So there is variety within that structure and routine, but it's the same every day. It's the same, foods I eat every day. I just, I'm not getting decision-making fatigue around health and wellness. And by having some variety within that routine, again, it keeps the stoke high. So I'm excited day in and day out to be doing those things. You brought up those events, 2929, HPLT, which is Brian Mazza's High Performance Lifestyle Retreat. And so those things obviously cost money to do, but I think they have a huge ROI from, an exercise standpoint, building grit, building mental resilience. But, at those events, that's where I meet a lot of my best friends, my best connections. I manifest my best opportunities. It's not by going to some cheesy networking event. It's by going to places where I'm surrounded by like-minded individuals that, they're passionate people and they're passionate about something. That generally is the demographic that is going to these events. And there's also a common thread of these people want to better themselves. They want to better people around them. They want to make sure their cup is full. So yeah, again, going back to that term, multitasking without multitasking, I'm going and doing it something I enjoy. I'm meeting, really interesting people and creating opportunities for myself and others.
You will never regret investing in yourself. I can guarantee that. And when you talk about those events or any events and experiences out there, and there's a ton to choose from. So first and foremost, I would advise, look, do your homework. And I work with my clients and I talk to guys about this all the time. Figuring out what it is that you need. Knowing what's important is what's most important. If you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. Figure out what type of event and experience would be best for you based upon what your needs are. And then you've got to shift your mindset a little bit from expense to investment. Yep. They're not expenses, they're investments. The question is, are you willing and able to make the investment in yourself and over time? Because when you make the investment versus an expense, you expect a return. That's the thing about an investment. You expect a return. And I think all these things lend themselves to a different mindset. We vacation differently. We operate differently. We invest in these experiences because we know what they return. They return personal growth. They return professional opportunities. They enhance the mindset and the lifestyles that we want to live, so we come back feeling better. Versus I used to go on vacation, and I would come back needing a vacation from my vacation. Because we were, you'd go to some all-inclusive resort, and I acted like I'd never seen a fucking open bar before. So I don't know if I can tell. And you just overindulge and you do it. Well, now again, we've shifted our mindset and the way that we vacation, the way that we travel, the things that we invest in, again, both as a family and individually, are for these opportunities and experiences that fill our tank rather than drain them. And again, the people that you meet, the quality of information that you get helps you show up better, not only for yourself, but everybody else around you. So I love that you touched on that. I think it's a multi-step process, which is, again, explore the opportunities that are available. There's a lot of stuff out there. Figure out what it is that you want to do and where you want to go and how you want to do it and what you need, and then make that investment. Make one. Start with one. Crawl, walk, run into this whole thing. The second thing you touched on earlier that I wanted to come back to a little bit was, again, as it pertains to lifestyle and living by design and having more freedom through structure, and just because I had that backwards for a while too. I thought, even the guys like you and the ones that looked like they were able to do everything and not in a rush and was all spontaneous and fly by the seat of their pants, and they were just able to live that way. I was completely wrong. It literally is by design. The freedom, the open space, again, that cadence under which you live and you operate happens again by design, by knowing where your time is going. By being very careful with your time. A lot of people talk about why. There's a lot of why out there. Find your why and your purpose and your passion. And they probably look at guys like you also, and even a few on a small level at me. I want to do that, or I want to live like that, or I see that, or I can't. And they fixate on the why. The why they can or the why they can't. What they really should be focusing on is the how. The questions you should be asking are about the how. That's where we should be really diving deep. Because when you focus on the how, a lot of times that why comes to you. That purpose comes to you. You start to answer the why questions by now what you're doing and how you're living because you focused on the how. How do I get time back? How do I get healthier? How do I make more money? How do I show up better as a husband? How do I show up better as a father? How do I recover faster? You start focusing on that, dude, your why is going to get pretty damn clear, much faster.
Yeah. And so many of those things too are shaped by choosing your environment, consciously choosing your environment, consciously choosing the people you surround yourself with. Those things have so dictated my reality. Here in Denver, the sun is shining almost every single day. It begs you to be outside playing in the wilderness. So it's, I don't really have to make decisions around indoor entertainment, going to a brunch, going out to a late night activity. Like my decisions are shaped by my environment, with the mountains just like begging me to go play in them. My friend group, they all live and breathe health and wellness. So, the opportunities that are presented to me are, hey, do you want to come over and work out today? Hey, do you want to come over and sit in the sauna today? Hey, you want to go get a drip at Restore? Hey, do you want to go jump in a cold stream? Like these are the questions my friends are asking me to do. So I don't have to weigh like, do I want to go to a nightclub in New York City or do I want to go for a hike? It's just like my environment and my friend group has kind of dictated my reality. And it was by design. Like I consciously chose to come to Denver, and it didn't happen overnight, but, let's say over a 12-year period, my friend group has completely shifted to, very few of my friends drink alcohol, all of my friends exercise.
12 years. Okay, let's just hang out on 12 years. That there are no overnight successes. There are no overnight transformations. There are no overnight reinventions. The stuff that we're talking about. Here's the reality. These things take time. And I had to do the same thing over 14 years, over 30 years. Changing friends, changing habits, evolving lifestyles, transitioning from what was unhealthy and what was not serving me into things that were healthy and that were serving me. And you piss a lot of people off along the way too. You lose friends, you lose clients over things. Sometimes you lose relationships, big, deep ones. But as you evolve and as you change, these are important steps to take. I don't want to over kind of shoot the reality of the situation, but I am a firm believer that anything and everything you want exists. Whatever kind of person you are, however you are wired, there's a group out there for you. There are other people that are wired just like that. So if you want to find people that live a healthy life and that are asking you the questions that Eric just described, that are interested in the same things that Eric just, they exist. I know that now. And exactly everything that I have left behind or moved away from, that still exists too. And I'm not saying that's good, bad, or indifferent. It's just not for me anymore. So to anybody who is questioning or wondering or is scared, and again, we get back to the why and the how, it's possible. You can seek out a gym. You can seek out, a swim group. You can seek out an experience that is restorative. You can seek out an experience that helps you find what it is that you're looking for. You can find a coach. You can find anything that you're looking for if you are willing to put yourself out there and even take some time to figure out what that is. And there's no perfect time to start. It's never going to be the right time. It's never going to be fantastic, personally, professionally, financially, or anything. So my only advice that I would give, as Eric has described everything like so perfectly, is, hey, if you're thinking about it and you're questioning it, today is the day that you start. Today is the day. And if you wait till tomorrow, then that today is tomorrow. And tomorrow, you just got to start doing it. And don't underestimate and don't undervalue the amount of work that goes into this. Like, you work hard, super hard. You make a lot of hard work look easy. We just talked about a number of guys out there. But this is all work. All of this is work. Whatever it is that you're doing is work. And no matter how much fun it is, and how cool it looks, at the end of the day, work is still work, and you've got to get it done if you want to get results.
Yeah, can't agree more. I think the first step is being inquisitive. So, reaching out to someone like me or someone like you. I love when people message me asking questions. I'm happy to help. I want to help people get to the top of the mountain. And yeah, backtracking, that 12-year period, the first step for me, this is probably 14 years ago now, was hiring a personal trainer to get back into shape. I was 205 pounds. I had a little gut in my mid-20s. I was, sitting, driving 50,000 miles a year with my first business. So I haven't always been an athlete. I haven't always, had a great aesthetic. It took years to get to where, I am and you are today. And my first step was hiring someone to give me the knowledge, give me the structure, and give me the accountability to get into, a place where I was comfortable doing it on my own and motivated enough to do it on my own. And then I found triathlon. And, through triathlon, each year it was picking something to focus on. The first year it was the triathlon training, learning how to swim, understanding why I was biking at a certain wattage, why I was running at a certain heart rate, like understanding that there's a difference between training and exercise. And then the year after that, it was sleep. And the way I do things is it takes about 60 days to form a habit. If I want to incorporate something new, let's say yoga, into my routine, I literally will do it for 60 days straight. I'll put a calendar appointment in every single day at 5 p.m., yoga class, until it becomes a routine. And I did this with so many things, supplements, diet, training, recovery, until it became autopilot. And, after that 60-day period, I've developed that that habit, I can move on to something else, and now I can stack habits. So, 1 year it was sleep, like dialing in sleep, dabbling in all of these different things, reading articles about sleep, understanding how I could get my best sleep. And then it was diet, then it was recovery, then it was supplements. So yeah, it's been a journey of year after year of doing, one additional thing to just become a little bit better. So incremental improvement. You're not going to do this all in one day. It's easy to get overwhelmed, but you have to remember that, this has been 12, 14 years of habit stacking.
Well, that's it. You stack those little wins every day. It's not looking for the giant breakthrough, and it's not looking for the huge win. It's a stacking of these little wins each day, and what I call, preparation, consistency, and accountability. Those are 3 pillars. Mm-hmm. And if you can just operate off of those 3 pillars, you're going to win out. You're going to feel better every day, and you're going to feel better over the long haul. That's when you're really going to look back and see, whoa, look at how far I've come over this time period. But I think you're also really going to start enjoying each day a whole lot more. Keep it in context. Preparation, consistency, accountability. Stack them up, as you said, 1% better each day. Develop those healthy habits, the things that you look forward to. Don't think about the big thing, way down the road. Just keep working towards it. You'll get there.
Yep, so true. Greg, where can people find you?
Oh, man, besides your sauna in your basement, okay?
That's where you can find him right now in this moment.
I might not leave. This is pretty comfortable down here. I'm having a good time. You can find me in Eric's basement. Here I am. Okay. But if you're looking for me, I am not hard to find. Midlifemale.com. You can visit the website. You can learn more about me, my coaching program. You can sign up for the newsletter. You can subscribe to the podcast. You can download a free copy of my No BS Guide to Maximizing Midlife for whatever age or stage or gender you're at. I think there's some really applicable tips that you can get in there. Find me on Instagram, which is where I spend most of my time, at Greg Scheinman. And then I also hang out on LinkedIn quite a bit because that's where a lot of the midlifers, professionals are who are looking for kind of that transition, transformation, and have some questions that want to be answered. So that's really where you can find me.
I love it. Thanks for sharing your superpowers with the world. I'm so excited for this book to come out for others to read. I can't wait to dive into it. Greg just gave this to me today, all about living your best life, living a life by design. Greg does coaching, so you can find him on social media. Thank you guys for tuning in. And if you guys have never been to a Restore Hyper Wellness, these are incredible facilities across the country that have such things as the infrared sauna, which Greg is sitting in right now. I think they have that exact model at some of their locations. They have cryotherapy chambers, the fully enclosed cryotherapy chambers. They do IV drips. They do mild HBOT, which is an incredible tool, especially if I had an injury about a year and a half ago now where I crashed on my bike and had a massive skin tear on my forearm, and I was using Restore's mild HBOT chamber to restore oxygen to some of this oxygen-deprived tissue, and it was amazing how it was able to heal that open wound. So that's an incredible service if you're injured or you're dealing with some kind of chronic disease. They also have Hyperice tools, Normatec boots. You can use the code ELEMENTS20 for 20% off their services. Greg, let's go eat lunch upstairs. I'll meet you in the kitchen.
Let's do it. Eric, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's always great hanging out with you.
9 Elements listeners can receive 20% off your first Restore service using the code ELEMENTS20 when making your first appointment. That code again is ELEMENTS20 to save 20% when booking your first service at Restore.